There's a saying that's become very common on the internet. I think it started somewhere on X or Twitter back in the day, especially around what's come to be known as ecom bros, or course people who sell courses or whatever it is, just people who teach business and stuff like that. But it's something that's become very common. It's something that a lot of people say, and unfortunately, a lot of people believe. And I realize that it's very problematic because it's coming from people who essentially are trying to sell something which is supposed to teach other people how to make money. And a lot of people don't realize that that in and of itself is the majority of that person's business. And they use this saying, it's almost weaponized at this point, to get people to buy stuff. It sounds like something where it sounds like the person that says this is concerned about you or concerned about your well-being or financial health, but in reality it's all just a setup to sell you something down the line in that email or in that tweet or blog post or whatever. But I think most people don't realize that. People are kind of starting to wise up to it, but I figured it'd be a good thing to address. And the saying is, it's anytime anyone says something along the lines of, you don't have a spending problem, you have an income problem. And they use that because a lot of people feel like they're underwater, especially nowadays, or they're living paycheck to paycheck. Apparently, most people in the United States don't have $5,000 net positive outside of mortgages and whatever else. Like, they don't even have that much. And most people are one bad financial situation, one bad financial emergency from being in a really bad spot. So this saying comes up quite a bit, and I've never seen someone say it who was not trying to sell something. Because and they use this saying because it, for one, it takes the problem away from like your personal responsibility. It makes you think that they're basically saying it's not your fault that you don't have money or that you're living paycheck to paycheck. And the one thing that you can control, they're taking it out of the equation. They're saying, oh, you don't have a spending problem, you have an income problem. And it's a good way to sound like you care about the person's situation or you're trying to help them. But the reality is, by saying that, you're actually telling people who more than likely do have a spending problem that they don't need to take any responsibility for the situation that they're in. And when people use that phrase, they do it in a way where they use it in a way that gets people kind of thinking beyond that and thinking, well, if I did have more money coming in, then I wouldn't worry so much about the things that I'm spending money on. I wouldn't have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck or whatever it is. But what people don't understand is that if you're living paycheck to paycheck now and it's not out of necessity, there are things you're spending money on that you shouldn't be spending money on. If you have more money coming in, you're not just magically going to have better spending habits or your saving habits. Because the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of people could save something. And if they're not saving anything, then it means that they've either gotten themselves into a really bad situation or they spend in excess of what they make, or they spend right at what they make. And if they were to really take a hard look at their finances and where their money's going, they could probably find 5 or 10% of the money that they blow on stuff, or money that they could save by sacrificing some things. So if someone's income did go up and they hadn't made better spending habits for themselves, then whatever additional money they were making is definitely going to go out the window. So the income problem thing doesn't really make sense. And it's sad that a lot of people buy into it, because the fact of the matter is, even if um, or sorry, the fact of the matter is that um, if you don't ever look at where your money is going, then you're never truly going to understand how to save it, how to manage it, how to invest it, and how to do better with it. Because if you're making 2,500, 3 grand a month, 4 grand a month, whatever after taxes, like that's your paycheck, and you are spending all of that, um, and you're convinced that it's all on essentials, then the thing is that even if your income tripled or doubled or whatever, you would still find ways to spend all of that additional money. It might not happen right away, but you will get to a point where you're going to be spending all of that money. Um, and this is very true and very obvious because if you look at any history or any data of lottery winners, you would think that if someone won the lottery, that they would be very smart with their money, or that they would at least have something saved. But the vast majority of lottery winners um, are completely broke not that long after they win the lottery. So I think that totally debunks this idea that people have income problems and not spending problems. I think that the vast majority of people have spending problems. And if you really scrutinized and looked at where your money went for the last 90 days, you definitely could find find places where you could have saved your money. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sacrifice everything and not enjoy yourself at all. But you could limit or find ways to be a little bit more frugal. You could find more affordable options. You could limit the times you go out. You could um, cancel some subscriptions and immediately save that money or invest that money and definitely see a difference. And it might take a little while, but the thing is that if you are able to save like whatever amount you're able to save, and if you think, well, it's going to take me so long to have 6 months, living expenses saved up, like, yeah, but eventually you will have it. It might take it might take 12 months to get 6 months of living expenses saved up. But that's better than the situation you're in right now. If you have no savings and if you have credit card debt, or if you just keep, staying at zero every month. So I think that that quote in and of itself does a lot of damage because it takes responsibility away from the people. It takes personal responsibility out of the equation, and I think that's the most important thing. And if you're in a situation where you do start saving money and you start putting money away for yourself and you start making sacrifices, you'll see that after a certain time period, you actually start to feel much more confidence and you want to save more and you want to be a little bit more aggressive about it. And the funny thing is that as you're able to save up and build a nest egg and build a safety net, you might actually see your income go up as well, because the stress that you will leave behind just by having a more stable financial situation will probably help you perform better in terms of work. It'll probably give you the confidence to go for a new job or to try something new in terms of business or whatever it is. So, yeah, I think the most important thing to understand is that, you learn to spend what's in your pocket. And so if you have less in your pocket, if you're focused on saving more and investing more, then you can actually change your financial situation in a relatively short amount of time. And that goes to show that, this whole thing that you don't have a spending problem, you have an income problem, is absolutely false. Because I think it leads people the wrong way. And if it's not watched carefully, then you can end up in a pretty bad situation. Trying to chase money and trying to chase business or whatever it is, and trying to learn how to make more money without ever actually fixing your spending habits. Because your spending habits will just grow with the amount of money you have coming in. So I think that's an important thing for people to realize, and it's an important distinction that should be made. Especially because that's something that gets thrown around a lot on Twitter and Instagram nowadays. So don't believe the hype. You may have an income problem. I'm sure most people would benefit from a higher income, especially right now because everything is wildly overpriced. But that's out of your control in the immediate future. But what is in your control is how you spend your money and where it goes. And if you start working on that, then I can promise that you'll definitely see an improvement in the quality of your life. So give that a try.